Hello everyone, welcome to the 11th part of the video tutorial series Learning Pandas from Zero. My name is Sheng Qilang, and in this tutorial I will be your guide in Pandas. Today we will talk about using Pandas for visualization. We will focus on building different types of charts from Pandas data frame and group by objects. Let us recapitulate what we have learned in our last tutorial. We have covered how to use the method pivot table to derive a pivot table from an existing data frame. This method collects data with the common features and arranges them in rows and columns, and make a two-dimensional table. The two-dimensional table provides us an alternative view of the data to extract trends along both rows and columns. Now we will do something more. In this chapter, we will introduce the last important application of Pandas, namely the visualization. We will talk about how to use the column data in a data frame to generate sophisticated plot in a few lines of commands. We will cover a number of charts, such as pie chart, line chart, and so on. We will also talk about how the group by object can be used for making graphs too. As we have explored in Chapter 1, Pandas relies on the Matplotlib plotting module as the backend. If you have not heard about Matplotlib, it is a scientific plotting library specific for Python to make sophisticated graphs. It is a modern counterpart to some traditional scientific plotting tools like GNuPlot, XMGrace, and so on. If you have used tools like GNuPlot, then you will be very familiar with how to plot a graph by using a script. Matplotlib has very similar features. The scripting styles allows us to do very flexible adjustment to every part of the graph. And yet, the default of the library is very well formulated that it can be readily used on many different types of data for a quick visualization. The plotting option is directly embedded as a method in Pandas series and data frame object. We need to call the method plot and pass the appropriate parameters. Pandas offer many common types of graphs which should be able to cover most of our needs. We need to choose a particular type such as pie, line, scatter, and so on to define the graph type. We also need to pass the column names which Pandas will refer to for the x and y values of the data. There are many optional arguments inherent to Matplotlib, such as title, color, and so on. Since this tutorial focuses on the usage of Pandas, we will not go into details about these arguments. And this method returns you a Matplotlib access object. We can further operate this object to achieve the expected visualization. Let's look at an example. Now we have the annual sales record on the top right hand corner showing how many apples and oranges are sold in each year. So the first thing we want to do is plot a line chart to show how many apples are sold in each year. To do so, we plug in the argument one by one as we show here. For example, the x-axis we choose year, y-axis we choose apple, and then we can customize the settings such as setting title, color, and so on. Notice that there are many ways in achieving the same visual result. There are a lot of useful arguments in Matplotlib which we cannot discuss in details one by one here. I list you some useful customization arguments here which you may find useful, including color, style, marker, figure size, and so on. For further details, I refer you to the Matplotlib documentation page for their applications. Another application of the plot library is the pie chart. We can generate a pie chart within a few lines of code. What we need to do is to pass the argument kind to be pie. Notice that some figures do not take the x-axis arbitrarily. We may need to set the index like what we show here. We set the column year as the index. Then we plot the pie chart by indicating the y-axis to be apple. We may immediately generate a good-looking pie chart for presentation use. For the group by object we discussed in Chapter 9, we can do aggregation on it and generate a derived data frame. Then we can plot figures similar to what we have discussed in previous slides. For some scenario, we can also use the plotting function on the group by object. Then Pandas will generate a composite plot by grouping related data from each subset data frame. Here we show you an example by the staff record we have used in Chapter 6. It contains the name, ID, and the location of some staff in a company. We can use the group by method to group the staffs by their location. Then we can do an aggregation to collect how many staffs are there in each location. This is a Pandas series object. Since this is a series object, we can directly visualize the data. Here we choose to plot it in a bar chart. Now it's your turn to exercise the visualization skills. Your friend comes to you and asks for your help again. Since it is almost the last tutorial, you decide to help your friend the last time. This time your friend wants to generate some line and bar charts based on the stock data. Can you help your friend? There is a bonus question for you to take home and think. If your friend wants to do a 3-day moving average, how will you achieve that? Here I give you 2 hints to motivate the thinking process. You will need the method rolling. This method takes an argument the window size. For example, if we pass the number 3, then in each row, Pandas will gather the data along that column, the most recent 3 rows. And we can do anything to aggregate the data according to our needs. This method will be very useful if you want to use Pandas to analyze stock or other investment assets. Feel free to pause the video so that you have more time to try it on your own. Now let's take a look at the solution. First, let's see how to make a price history chart. We will naturally need to call the column price and use the plot method. We pass the argument kind to be line and select the x and y value accordingly. As I mentioned, this method returns a matplotlib axis object. We can further edit this object by standard procedure in matplotlib, such as adding the x-axis and y-axis labels. Another convenient feature we have used is that Pandas can identify the datetime object and arrange it accordingly. Then, let's look at the volume bar chart. We use the same technique to build a bar chart. Here we show a variation by first setting the column date as the index. Then we only pass the column for the argument y. We may notice that the Pandas provides the full format for the date in each bar. We may further improve the chart, for example, by readjusting the date format. We can do so by defining our own method to filter the date. So that's the end of our 11th tutorial video. And once again, thank you for watching this video. I hope to see you again in the next tutorial. We will review this series of tutorials and talk about what we can do to further hone our skill in Pandas. Again, practice makes perfect. I will encourage you to also read my open source ebook to do some of the related exercises to strengthen the skills. I hope you have enjoyed the tutorial today. See you.